G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and this is a video tutorial on the anatomy and muscle structure of legs. So as with my other anatomy lessons videos, I'm going to have three things to say in the beginning. First and foremost, I'm not an expert, which leads me to my second point, that this is a tutorial in an aesthetic approach, not a technical approach. And third, these lessons apply to female anatomy as well, but we are applying them to male anatomy because it is more robust and easy to pop out without it looking like a grotesque monster, because muscly girls aren't always hot. Not that muscly guys are. Have I dug myself a hole? Yes, I have. So, jumping straight into it, this is the example I've prepared beforehand. We have the back, the side, and the front of a male leg. Now, what I'm going to do is go into this and individually outline the muscle groups that I focus on when I draw legs. So as with all muscle groups, in arms, in torso, in the face, everything, there are a lot of muscle groups, but we're just going to be looking at the main bulky ones that pop out the most, so that when you draw comic characters or whatever that you're hoping to apply this stuff to, we know what to focus on mainly. So first and foremost, where we begin with the leg is where the leg begins, namely up here in the gluteus maximus, or the bum. So there are several bum muscle groups, but we're just going to outline the one for now. Oops. And you can barely see it from the front. Now, as stated in the other anatomy videos, there are directions of muscles. These kind of, they tuck into each other and have general directions that they go in. So this kind of goes across the bum like that, ends at the top of the leg and kind of curls down. But there are muscles up here. This is just the main section of the gluteus maximus, which is kind of funny because my cat's name is Maximus. He's not in here at the moment. I lock him out when I make videos. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So next we're going to look at the back of the leg, and rather than divide this into two groups, because it is mainly in several groups, I'm just going to keep it the one color, but just be conscious that there is a divide at the back of the thigh. But it's simple enough to keep the approach as if it's just kind of like two simple but very similar groups of muscle here. Okay, so almost like the tricep, really, because the tricep, which is the back of the arm muscle, is made up of several groups of muscles, but we kind of approach it as if it's one. Now, when drawing the side of the leg here, we don't need to go into too much, detail, but I kind of picture from the side view that it's very separated. In the thigh, we have the back area of the thigh, so the gluteus maximus, which is fun to say, and the that back part of the thigh. See, I don't know the names of these things. They're kind of grouped together, but they're separate from the front muscles. And we won't be using this color because you can't on the front view, because you can't see the back muscles in the front view. So moving along, let's go into a nice orange color. Okay, so getting to the front parts of the muscles, this is where it gets a little bit interesting and a little bit finicky, because I've always had a little bit of difficulty drawing the muscles at the front, the muscles of the legs. But in general, this is the way that I kind of approach it, because we have these directional lines. Now, when drawing the front of the leg, or the front from the side, I generally like to picture it in three parts. So of this first part, which is this big meaty part here, which tucks into the top and into these bottom muscles as well. Now I'm going to select a nice yellow colour for the other muscles. But we have these muscles which kind of come around from the side and just kind of tuck into the front, like this. So from the side view, that looks a little bit like this. Okay, and I'll go with a brighter yellow for the other one, which is a very similar thing, just on the other side. Now, if you've got a very robust character, very muscly, then these three are the first to balloon out in size in the legs. They kind of grow and get quite muscly. Like cyclists have really solid muscles in here. So that's kind of all the detail we really need to go in for that. Like, again, because this isn't a technical approach to anatomy, it's just kind of a simple aesthetic view as to a way that you can divide these muscles into groups. So, you know, if I was to get more detailed, you know, there are muscles in here, there are muscles there are obviously muscles in here, and muscles between these, and overlapping and underlapping and all this stuff, but we're just looking at the main group. So moving down to the other part of the leg, what do you call them? Calves, that's what you call them. Let's get a nice light blue. So when looking at the back of the calves, same thing as to the top of the back part of the thighs, you got this sort of dual group of muscles here. Now they are longer, so if you were to look at anatomy pictures, they do kind of extend down here, but they turn into more like a cartilage looking thing there. I'm not sure what you would call it, but point is the bulk of the actual muscle is like that, and that's what we're looking at. Same thing here, bulk of the actual muscle kind of tucks all together in that big group there. Okay, and we're going to have one more group, but this is a much less defined group, or difficult to define in pieces when you draw it. So I'm just going to draw a kind of an area that encompasses the front of that bottom part of the leg, and that is because, as you would see if you Google imaged the whole thing, at the front of this part of the leg, there are lots and lots of muscles, but they're all very kind of long and thin, and they don't really stick out much on their own unless you're like a massive bodybuilder or the Hulk. So in general, I think it keeps it fairly simple to just kind of roughly know that there's stuff going on here. And if I define anything at the front of that part of the leg, I actually define the bone, the shin bone, or whatever you would call it, because it just kind of sticks out more. And when a leg is really quite ripped and you can see the muscles, the bone's at the forefront of that leg anyway, and it's more easy to draw and determine that it sticks out. So this is the very simplified approach and view of the muscle groups in the leg. Now, in putting these in application, we're going to make a quick pose, and we're going to figure out how to apply the muscles to that pose. So what's a pose that we can do? What is a pose? How about some sort of ninja pose? So we have one straight leg. There is a hip here, and the other leg kind of folds into itself. So that's the knee. This is another knee, and that's the leg, the foot. And okay, so if I was to just kind of roughly define, now with the other muscle tutorials, we kind of went straight into drawing the muscles onto those stick figure lines, but with the legs, I find it's good to roughly draw the shape that you want the legs to take up first, because it's the shape is more defined by that than the muscles themselves. If you let the muscles define the shape, then it can get a little bit tricky. You have to be really familiar with drawing the muscles, and even I can't really do that. It's quite tricky and, you know, complicated. So this is the approach that I'm going to take here today. Now, it feels a little bit disproportionate, so I'm just going to stretch things about a bit. How's that feel? That looks all right. It's a very extreme leg pose, but I think that's the point of this anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick these muscle groups bit by bit and just apply them to the legs. So first and foremost, we're going to take the gluteus maximus, and we're going to figure out how this applies. So there's not much of it here. It just kind of would tuck into the side there, and maybe under there, but everything else about it is fairly hidden. Let's take this part. So this is probably, actually no, let's start off with the side. This is probably the most robust muscle group in the leg. So we start off by kind of curving this around like that. If it was flat and you could imagine a shape, I would have it something like that, and I wrap it around the leg. Same with the bit on the other side, and it's got to fit in with the shape of this middle bit here. So coming along, same thing over on this side. I would draw that shape, kind of tucking around like that. Going back to our muscle groups, let's take the other side, that yellow, and apply it here. So that is where that would go. And then on the other side, something like that. Going back to select our middle bit. I'm so shocking, like people who actually know what these groups are called would watch me be like, now this is the middle bit, and they'll think I'm a complete idiot, but that's okay because this is a tutorial for dummies by a dummy, purely about aesthetics. But this is that one big group here. This is a bit that sticks out a fair bit if they're quite muscly. Okay, so next, let's take these bits, the calf muscle, and so you can see it kind of would poke out under here. When these muscles squish together, so when, let's say this is a flat open leg, but if this view of the leg were to go like that, the calf muscle would get all squishy up against the back of the thigh. And that's exactly what's happening in this view here. This the calf muscle is sticking out a bit because it's squished against the thigh. But over here, it's elongated. And so you can just see it, the side of it, but from the back. And yes, I know I scratch my nose a lot, and it gets little tingles, and I don't know if it's to do with the talking or the fact that I have cold or get allergies. I don't know, but ignore it. I'm sorry. And we just have those front parts of the muscle here. And you can't really see it over here. And so that's the simple way as to how I'd go about drawing that. Now, again, with other muscles, you know, there are like groups into here that go up into the groin and things like that. But for the majority of what we're looking at here, this is good. So we're going to take our black line now. I'm going to outline how this would be drawn. So if this were a particularly muscular character, there are just certain things that I would draw lines to in the picture. First of all, I'm just going to draw the outline. It goes down. Got the groin, the bum. Okay, so this is just my rough outline And now if I were to refine/define where these muscles are, I would take a thinner line and just kind of add small divisions to things like these joining areas where the bulk of the muscle are. Also here on the shin, I'd add a line defining where the bone is and then where the muscle is. And I always like to add the knee and then it goes up into the torso. I can get rid of my working lines here. And you can see how that progressed from our construction lines in a very stick figure-y, shape outline sort of way, adding the muscle groups and then wrapping skin on the bone there. Now, this leg is a very warped sort of leg. That isn't a very normal pose. Looks a bit ridiculous, actually. Kind of want to fix things because it's so ridiculous. But point is, that is how I would approach drawing leg anatomy. I do want to move these things around a bit, just to have that a little more angled at the top. Anyways, I'm just being picky. But at the end of the day, anatomy is something that you constantly learn and refine. I am by no means a master, but this is just an approach that I use. I just, make sure that I have a rough understanding as to where the major groups of muscles are and how they tuck into each other. And then I try and apply that to my drawings in places where that is needed. So I hope this video tutorial has been helpful. Make sure you subscribe if you're interested in getting more, and have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed this video. Links are below to download the original files for reference. Remember, if you animate or draw something cool, be sure to share it on Newgrounds.com, the internet's best source for animations, games, art and music. Until next time, see you later.